has been a busy year for emergency responders like the Red Cross. Personnel from the Red Cross have responded to floods, fires, and first aid calls throughout the year. And today we'll talk with leaders from the Northern New England region of the Red Cross about the past year and discuss tips for staying safe this busy time of year, the holiday season. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Across the Fence. I'm Jolie Whitney. It takes less than 30 seconds for a stovetop fire to start. That's less time than it'll take me to read this introduction, and it's less time than it takes to even answer the door. So while accidents happen, we hope today's program will help you think twice while you celebrate the holidays with your friends and family. To talk about the efforts of the Red Cross of Northern New England, I'm joined by Sarah Lemnah. She's the Executive Director of the Red Cross chapter in Vermont, and Dan Dowling, who serves as the Regional Communications Manager for the organization. The Red Cross of Northern New England serves New Hampshire, Maine, and Vermont. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
We're happy to have both of you back on the show, and let's start off. When I think of the Red Cross, I usually tend to think of blood, and so how's the blood quantity, I guess, this time of year?
Sure. Well, certainly better than it was a year ago. We started the year with a blood shortfall nationally across the country. There was a 7,000 unit shortfall between Christmas and New Year's. You have these holiday seasons where people don't necessarily go to donate blood, and we had a shortfall. We started the year below, but we made it back, and then we had another shortfall in the summertime. We had record heat across the country that helped create a shortage for people going to blood drives, busy travel season, and so we endured that as well. But you know, the Red Cross is a national supplier of blood. The blood that we collect here in Vermont goes all across the Northeast and where it's needed the most, and we certainly appreciate all the Vermonters donating blood this year. It's been a great year, and we hope that people donating in December can help us avoid a shortfall this coming January.
Sure, but it's always a good time to donate, is that right?
Absolutely. They're so easy to donate too. You can go to lots of blood drives all across Vermont. We have a donor center here in Burlington where you can sign up for appointments, but certainly we have great blood drives. We just wrapped up a blood drive down in Rutland. The Gift of Life Marathon blood drive went for 4 days. We had great turnout. We have such good communities in places like Rutland and St. Albans where people are regularly donating, and it's just been phenomenal.
Sure, and let's talk about another place that the Red Cross gets really involved. Of course, this year we had flooding for kind of the second year in a row. Tell me how the Red Cross gets involved helping there.
Yeah, you know, the flooding in Vermont has really been historic the last few years. So the Red Cross is going out in the community, setting up shelters, providing food, handing out cleanup kits. I mean, it's 25 pellets of water. It's just an amazing amount of product going out there. Volunteers, we had 70 volunteers who were out there. I had the honor of working with many of them at the shelters, and they are there doing whatever needs to be done to help the communities get back on their feet.
And when there's a disaster like this, you have people in towns, communities, municipalities, the federal government, everybody's kind of putting their hands in. So what's the Red Cross contributing there? You
know, we are in with our community partners. So we have people that are working with emergency managers. We are deploying supports and supplies. The logistics behind floods is amazing. This is my first time working at the Red Cross doing a flooding season, and to see all these supplies coming in from all over the country and all over the state, being deployed to towns and communities from the Northeast Kingdom to Central Vermont was just amazing to see, and having our ERV, our emergency response vehicle, driving around delivering meals constantly on a cycle was just amazing to see. So it's quite a committed group, and it's an amazing deployment.
Sure. And are you guys doing like emergency rescue? Like what's the breadth of stuff that you're doing and contributing during a flood?
Certainly, we're certainly involved in sheltering. When we had the flooding that occurred again this past July, our first response is to get people to a safe place. And so we had shelters open in Barrie, St. Johnsbury, and we certainly we're addressing the needs there. And then we do some assessment. We look at properties and see which places may be damaged or destroyed, and there may be some financial assistance in that regard as well. We also gave out plenty of supplies, equipment, cleanup kits, and help deliver food and meals to people right to where they were, busy cleaning up. You know, we give people a warm meal. And I think there's a lot of things that go into helping people feel, safe and comfortable after a disaster like that.
Sure, let's talk about something that's a little bit less widespread, but still a big concern, especially this time of year. Tell me about the Sound the Alarm program. Kind of what's that doing?
So Sound the Alarm is a wonderful program. It's part of our home fire campaign. So, having a working smoke alarm can decrease your risk of death by 50%. And we are dedicated to making sure that everybody who needs a smoke alarm has a smoke alarm. So our home fire campaign, we installed 146 smoke alarms in one day in Washington County. We had volunteers going out, working with people. It was amazing to see, but we do it throughout the year. We've done over 234 installations so far this year, and there are people out doing it today. So all around the state, we're installing smoke alarms, teaching people fire prevention, teaching them their plan, to practice their plan. So it's an amazing program, and I would encourage everybody to go to redcross.org/endhomefires, NNE. And you can sign up. A lot of times people can't afford a smoke alarm, or they just physically can't install it. And we definitely don't want somebody, trying to install a smoke alarm who's going to endanger themselves or not have a smoke alarm because of financial need.
Sure. And we actually just passed daylight savings time. Well, it's been a little while, but I know that's kind of a hallmark for checking your smoke alarm. Should you do it twice a year? What's the good guidance for that?
I would say test your smoke alarm every month.
Great.
Install,
the merrier.
install the batteries at least once a year if you have an old-fashioned one that requires the batteries, but a lot of them now have a 10-year lifespan. But one thing we do want to encourage people, people say, I tested the button, it goes off, it works fine. If you have a smoke alarm that's more than 10 years old, even if you hit the button and it works, it needs to be replaced because it's got film over it, it's got dirt, it's not as sensitive. So just because it rings when you hit the button doesn't mean it's going to go off quickly enough during a fire.
Sure. And we're going to jump a little bit more into fire stuff soon, but Vermont wasn't the only state kind of impacted by natural disasters. Can you tell me a little bit about the involvement of Vermonters working outside of the state to help with stuff like hurricane
Sure.
relief?
I mean, the warming climate creates more disasters, more intense, more frequently. We certainly saw that over the course of the year, and the Red Cross was there to respond to the disasters. Not only did we have the catastrophic hurricanes that we had with Milton and Helene, but the Red Cross also responded to wildfires out west. We had flooding in the Midwest. We had tornadoes earlier in the year, and all those disasters are things that we respond to. We had the flooding here in Vermont. We had Red Cross volunteers coming from other states to assist here in Vermont. So it's the continuous disasters that we're seeing on a regular basis here that continues this disaster response, and we rely on our volunteers to be there when disasters hit.
Sure. And do you think this year was more disastrous maybe than years past, or is it all kind of the same?
When you track billion-dollar disasters, I think we were just a few short of last year, but it was another record year in many regards, and we've seen catastrophic damage throughout the Southeast from these hurricanes, and we're just preparing for the next one, and we're making sure that our teams are staffed and ready to go, and it seems like there's always a disaster around the corner.
Sure. And when somebody's going to a disaster area like this, you don't want to be too many cooks in the kitchen. So how are they really making sure they're helping? What are they doing?
They're being deployed to different things. So a lot of the volunteers that left Vermont were going down and helping to set up shelters. They were handing out food. So there is a team that deploys them that has their job detail, has where they're going to be staying. So it's a well-oiled machine. I mean, we had 27 Vermonters going out and helping other areas of the country. What was most proud for me is the day the hurricanes were hitting, we were getting email notifications of volunteers that were getting the travel orders. They were heading out. So they were on the ground helping people from day one, and it's pretty amazing to see that.
Sure. Now let's go back to some holiday season talk this time of year. So if you get a Christmas tree, is it just a matter of if you have a live tree, watering it every day, keeping it away from heat sources? What's the good tree guidance?
Sure. It's easy to forget to water the tree. In the holiday season, we're also busy. Just keeping the tree watered can be a huge help in making sure it doesn't dry out, and making sure it has enough water and keeping track of it, making sure your tree water holder isn't leaking, so you're losing the water that way, and just keep being mindful of things, especially candles, keeping candles away from trees or anything else that might be flammable. And there's all sorts of things that we forget about this time of year, faulty wiring and your Christmas lights, and lots of different things when it comes to home decorating that you really should be mindful of when you're keeping track of things this time of year.
Sure, and you were saying even before the taping started, sometimes we put it away after the Christmas season and we don't really look at it or think about it until it's up. So make sure maybe just look over your stuff.
Sure. Again, a lot of times we're in a rush for these types of things. Just get it out, get it up, and we don't check things like wiring and stuff like that. Old decorations that have maybe lasted generations that maybe shouldn't be near flames or things like that. And just be careful, especially with kids or pets in the house where accidents can happen easily.
Sure. And now let's talk about another big fire risk this time of year, which is cooking fires. So why is the tendency so much higher during the holiday season, December and November?
People are cooking more. They have big family gatherings, they're cooking big meals, they're stressed, they're distracted, their kids are running around, you're getting phone calls. It doesn't take long for a fire to get out of control. It is the leading cause of home fires, cooking. People leave the room, they leave something on the stove, something is close by, you put a towel down next to it, it doesn't take long. A dog or a kid comes running in and they grab something, they hit something, and then before you know it, a fire is out of control. And you don't want to be throwing water on a cooking fire. Having that kitchen fire extinguisher is really important, but being mindful to prevent the fire before it starts is the best thing to do.
Yeah, so what are some good kind of things to keep in mind when you're cooking? Should you maybe not be away from it for too long?
Yeah,
What's the guidance?
if you're gonna leave the room, turn it off. People are gonna say, "Oh, I just left the room for a minute." a minute's too long. Turn it off. Remove things from sources of heat. Don't have loose clothing. You reach over one pot to stir another one, and all of a sudden you're on fire. Making sure the handles are turned in so little kids can't grab them. Don't leave kids alone in the kitchen when you're cooking. Don't have dogs running around, and just being mindful if you're doing something that's I have a neighbor, I won't say names, who was trying to deep fry their turkey in their house. Just being very cautious. These are high risk things when you're cooking. People take it for granted, but you really got to be careful.
All right, and you said a little bit before that coming into 2025, you've got some big goals as the Red Cross. Tell me about them.
Sure. Well, I think we're trying to create connections with communities before the disasters happen. When we had the flooding in Vermont, you're in emergency mode. We're trying to make connections with town municipalities and government agencies, and making sure that we have the plans in place to help people where they need it when these disasters strike. We are seeing now that these disasters in Vermont are happening more regularly. We want to be in a place where we can respond more quickly. And, Sarah, we've really been working to make those connections.
We're working really hard. And also certain areas of the state disproportionately have storms. So making sure that we have supplies deployed there, we have volunteers, making sure we're working with those community partners, and teaching towns and communities how to best prepare themselves, how to do an emergency shelter. If we have a huge disaster, the Red Cross can't stand up 10 shelters at the same time. Working with people to make sure they know what to do in disaster, having their kits together to make sure their home's safe, and if they lose power or if they're disconnected, they can have enough supplies to last a few days. So give them that educational piece out there.
Sure, and you said that we aren't going into the new year with a blood deficit, or do we?
So far, so good. We're in a time of year, when during Christmas and New Year's, where there is usually less donations than we would normally expect. So our hope is that people continue to donate. People can go to redcross.org and sign up for a blood drive in your area. We have blood drives all across the state of Vermont, not just here in Burlington, and we encourage people to do that. And we've had a really good success with first-time donors this year as well. We lost a lot of students and college students during COVID. It's nice to see them begin to come back, and it's our first-time donors that are really helping us out, and then our recurring donors who donate regularly, which we also appreciate as well.
Great, absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
And that takes care of our program for today. My thanks to the hardest working crew behind the scenes here who make sure we're always safe. I'm Julie Whitney. This is Across the Fence. Have a good one.